Welcome back, adventurer. This week's creatures have been described as a ghost, or maybe a vampire, very angry skin, and a dangerous gang of swimmers. So come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Aye, we've got a barrel for that. Aye, pop the dregs from those five. In that, yeah. We'll call it, Adventurer. We're just sorting out the new special brew. Yeah, real authentic single estate business. Let me get you one. On the house, of course. And hell, I'll throw in a few stories too. The ties come loose as we're peeking into the realm's bathrobe of bizarre. And we'll start with the Strigoi from Romanian folklore. The Strigoi, plural striga, or strigasia, if you're dealing with the female form, is a cryptid with more than a passing association with vampirism, witchcraft, and the restless dead. The earliest recorded written mention of a Strigoi is in the account of Giogrando Alovic, 1579 to 1656. Often cited as the first real vampire. According to the story, Grando rose from his grave 16 years after death to terrorise his former village, embodying what would become one of Eastern Europe's most enduring vampiric archetypes. Unlike most creatures with just the one meaning behind the name, lore of Strigoi splits into two main types. The Strigoi viu, which is the living Strigoi. They're a regular human, much like yourself, only born under certain dark omens. And the Strigoi mort, commonly referred to as the dead Strigoi. This is the most dangerous variant, a corpse that wakes from its grave. For either version, there's a few ways one can recast themselves as Strigoi. For the living, it was thought those who lived a sinful life, died unmarried, were executed for perjury, committed suicide, perished under a witch's curse, or born the seventh child of the same sex. Anyone who's placed a tick next to one of those would likely convert or otherwise return as Strigoi. With regards to the visual impression, Strigoi work like talented chefs, pairing the flavours of human familiarity with the spice of a tortured corpse. At first glance, one might mistake Strigoi for a traveller who needs to spend a little more time in the sun, but upon closer inspection, notes of the macabre begin to reveal themselves. Skin, waxen, and dull pale. Veins like fine blue thread strewn across the entire form. And eyes, deep set and luminous, reflect like an animal's at night. The mouth too is a bit of a giveaway. It's wide, likely able to fit an entire fist in with ease. And the lips are dark and cracked, revealing teeth long and pointed. Especially the canines, I'm told. A fine layer of hair runs along the spine and arms, thickening near the shoulders and around the neck, giving Strigoi this half-remembered animal shape. And the fingers are elongated, ending in curved, folks say, horn-like nails. Tradition also describes Strigoi as bald on the top of their head, and with a vestigial tail covered in hair poking from their bottom. And last there's the smell, but where you'd expect scent of blood, flesh, or bodily stench, you'll find subtle notes of turned earth. A rather pleasant smell, preceding a rather not so pleasant encounter. Strigoi are said to dwell in the remote, shadowed regions of Eastern Europe, especially the rural villages and forested valleys of Romania and the Carpathian Mountains. By day they're said to rest in their own graves, some in abandoned ruins, or just in a hole beneath the cold earth. Or for the living Strigoi, they'll look like an ordinary human being, heading out to the shops, the pharmacy, or maybe spending some time in their local tavern. At night, the locations swap. The living Strigoi tend to spend time in their beds, like any other ordinary human, and the dead wander wherever their hunger takes them. Fields of crops, easily penetratable pens, or to the abodes of their living relatives, for a surprise spot of lunch. I briefly mentioned earlier that Strigoi come in two distinct flavours, living and dead. Let's have a closer read into what to expect with each variant. The living Strigoi, or, well, still living humans, who exhibit supernatural tendencies. At night, their souls leave their bodies, which lie cold and still in what sounds like a rather lovely deep sleep. And while the spirits out wandering the villages and fields, it appears they're drawn to crossroads, primarily, where they gather at midnight with others of their kin, to dance, howl, and feast. It's an unholy gathering, known by many as the Nocturnal Sabbath. Folks tell me their wandering is parasitic, that they drain vitality from those they encounter, leaving victims sickly, crops blighted, and livestock barren. And they can shapeshift too, into all sorts of animals. Dogs, wolves, cats, owls, bats, and who could forget the most precious animal of all, a fireball. Now, depending on who you chat with, they can also appear as columns of mist or light, and through witchcraft-like abilities, they can cast the evil eye, cause nightmares, or appear in mirrors and dreams as omens of misfortune. They can also manipulate the weather. If there's a drought in your village, it means that there's a Strigoi preventing the rain. If it rains hail, that means God is punishing the Strigoi responsible for blocking the rain. And if it rains when the sun's out, it's believed that one of the Strigoi breed has been killed. And this control extends to nocturnal creatures, which they can command or inhabit. And those harmed by them risk not only death, but transformation into another Strigoi. The dead Strigoi are corpses that rise from the grave, emerging apparently between midnight and dawn, making sure to promptly return to their graves before sunrise. Their hauntings often begin at the homes of their living relatives, tapping their bony fingers on the glass or calling out names of kin, and those who answer are fated to die soon after. Unlike the living Strigoi, these revenants are physically tangible. They feed on blood or press upon their sleeping prey, inducing sleep paralysis as a result. They can manifest as mist or wind, slipping through cracks or chimneys, and often shift into similar forms as their living counterparts. Black cats, dogs, wolves, or specific to the dead, insects. The presence of a dead Strigoi is said to ripple through the realm. Livestock will refuse to eat. Any and all milk, whether it's in or outside of an animal, will turn sour. And the hens cease to lay any eggs. Entire villages often attribute plagues, storms, and suspicious or unexpected death to a newly buried Strigoi. And despite their decay, these revenants retain traces of life. Their bodies remain warm, flexible, and ruddy tough. Sometimes, and I'm not sure why this point kept appearing, but breath is said to return after burial. Folks tell me their bodies resist rot. They can speak and walk the land as if they're alive. You'd reckon that fella in the graveyard was just a run-of-the-mill mourner, till he steps down into the dirt, vanishing back into his grave. Regardless of version, Strigoi are said to be most active during certain sacred times. The new moon, the winter solstice, and St. Andrew's Night on November 30th are said to be popular dates for Strigoi. So to keep all your blood, manna and milk within that fleshy vessel you call a body, stretch those ears and swallow whole this life-saving selection of tips. Firstly, the easiest trick. Strigoi are what you could say allergic to certain herbs and metals used in burial rituals. So keep a little pouch of basil, mugwort, wormwood or rosemary on you, and pop a few iron, steel or silver coins and nails in your pockets too. Also, while you got your shopping list handy, add garlic, holy water, incense and a holy symbol, just to cover all bases. And according to the Dracula scrapbook by Peter Haining from 1976, the meat of a pig killed on the 17th of October, known as the feast day of Saint Ignatius, was a good way to guard against vampires. Though I couldn't nail down how exactly this pig is used. Personally, I suspect either the fat is smeared on the corpse before burial, the meat's eaten by the living to deter the dead's appetite, or the meat's buried with the dead whole. You might need to test that one out yourself. If you're a bit more proactive, and you fancy finding a Strigoi before one finds you, then you locate one by taking a 7-year-old boy of, and I quote, purity, dressing him in white, and placing him on a white horse near a graveyard midday. Law states the horse will wander the grounds, only stopping at a grave containing Strigoi. Or according to French geographer Elise Reclus, any deceased with red hair is likely to return as Strigoi. And once one's located, it's time to get your hands dirty. Dig up the suspected Strigoi, or I guess pay a living when I visit, and have a priest read them their burial order. Then pick one of these dispatching methods. Stake the heart with an oak or yew branch, remove and burn the heart, or simple decapitation. Whichever method you pick, just be sure to bury the body face down and nail the coffin heavy. Now how's that blended brew behaving? Oh, that's not a good face. Hold on, let me grab a rag real quick. Why hello there you, it's me here, the disembodied voice floating into one or possibly two of your ears. We don't go any higher than that though, not on this show. Thanks for listening to episode 23 of Creature Tavern. What started as a hobby has transformed into the same hobby, but now I spend all my spare time writing these. Let me know what you do in your spare time by posting about the show using the hashtag Creature Tavern on X or Blue Sky. Doing so will likely depress me further after reading of all the exciting ways you play with your life outside of obligation. And of course there's a chance your name will appear on the show. You could end up kin of a kingdom's ruler, disguised in common rags for a spot of mischief. Or perhaps a common tavern tenant, glammed up with polished rocks as they swan off to scenes of higher society. Either way, you'll be able to ease your parents' worry as you tell them your name featured on a somewhat interesting internet audio show. And if you're joining us on YouTube, leave a comment. And you too could feature as a character totally not inspired by the movie Parent Trap. And why not impress your parents further by using the weekly family catch-up to share the show? Post it in the group chat, or demand everyone shut up while you make a speaker with your hands and blast the raw experience for all. Now with the family therapy over, let's get you back to the real fat of this pleasant vibration as we get you back to the tavern. Hey, look at you! I didn't need this rag after all. And good thing too, it's my favourite one. Speaking of flat planes of material, let's get into lore of our second creature for the week. El Cuero, from Chile, specifically Mapuche, folklore. I believe correctly pronounced El Cuer, run, or rather swim, under a good number of names. We've got El Cuer del Agua, which means water hide, Cuer Vivo, which means live hide, Lafquen Trilque, pelt of the lake, La Manta, the blanket, Manta del Diablo, the devil's blanket, devilish pelt, or leather demon. The aquatic sheet was first described in print in 1810 by Juan Ignacio Malina in his essay on the natural history of Chile. Malina believed El Cuer to be a type of giant ray, and some argue it was Malina's description that laid the foundation for legend of the El Cuer as a supernatural terror. The later investigation from one Bernardo Quintina Mancilla in 1972 described the creature as a clawed octopus with all the regular works: tentacles, a suction cup in the centre, and eyes situated near its core. Not at all like a regular octopus. Many other records too draw comparisons to cephalopods and rays, cementing this creature as an aquatic hybrid between animal biology and fantastic myth. In form and size, El Cuer resemble a thick, leathery, flayed hide. Most often spotted is that of a cow, goat, or in more gruesome accounts, human skin. Typically 2 to 5 feet across, appearing as flattened and earthy coloured, though some folks paint its hue as brown, with large white spots. Others, though, write that it can appear as green, or even black. The most recognisable feature of an El Cuer is the ring of sharp claws, nails or hooks, surrounding the edge of its body. Had these claws described as tiny little legs too, ending in talons, or as tentacles, terminating in pincers. In some lore, the hooks are swapped out for countless undersized eyes, with 4 large red bulging eyes dominating the centre of its upper surface. Sometimes these eyes are said to be mounted on stalks, and if you flip the skin beast over, you'll find a lighter, more raw tone to the flesh, and a mouth set right in the middle. And again, depending on who you ask, it may extend outwards, like that of certain bottom-feeding fish, or the goblin shark. El Cuer said to haunt the shadowy depths of Chilean and Argentinian waters. A witness tale from Benjamin Vicuna McKenna in 1877 places the water skin in the coastal lagoon of Vina del Mar. The other accounts I found send us to the Andine basin of Lakes Lacar and Nahul Hapai. Yes, it came as a surprise to me too. The water beast lives where the water is. El Cuer are famously known for their abnormal method of capturing prey. They don't claw, bite or grasp. They envelop. An attack central to the legend. Folks say the living skin lies in wait at the edge of lakes and rivers, often disguised as a piece of hide, large patch of moss, or hidden by sand in the shallows, as it allows waves to wash over its back, making it indistinguishable from the surrounding terrain. When a man, woman, child or animal steps on the skin, the victim first feels a damp, mossy texture, followed almost instantly by dizziness or drowsiness. A quick moment of weakness, but it's just enough to seal your fate. At that instant, the beast flips up its sides and folds itself over the poor soul, who just fancied a splash. The creature then wraps its prey tightly, contracting its body in what folks describe as an irresistible force, and drags him to the bottom of its waters. This crushing grip is said to be powerful enough to drag the strongest horse down as if it were a teacup pig, leaving no chance for escape. Once the prey ceases to struggle, Elque use their proboscis, which in these stories is thought to be an elongated sucking mouthpart, to puncture its victim's skin and suck out the internal organs and blood, leaving behind a dry husk. Some accounts on the attack say instead of laying in wait for dinner, the living leather prefers a more proactive approach, surging suddenly from beneath the surface, much like a crocodile, before launching itself with terrifying speed, wrapping around its target like a wet sheet of skin, and then once again draining them of all that juicy red blood. This behaviour was illustrated quite well in a 1965 account by Ambrosii Melville, who told the story of a man named Remy, killed on the shore of Lake Carlifquin. Melville recounts that Remy's horse threw him to the ground, where he fell into something resembling a hide by the water's edge. I think you know where this is going, adventurer. The hide rolled around him and pulled him into the lake. It was also written that Elque enjoy a spot of sunbathing. These tomes say it crawls out from the water to bask in the sun on riverbanks or beaches, laying flat to absorb warmth before returning to the depths. And when it wishes to re-enter the water, it doesn't seem to crawl back in as it did to get out. It instead prefers a fancier form of travel. But instead of a lovely horse-drawn cart or a wicked long hearse, the Elque summon a small whirlwind or whirlpool, which carries it back beneath the surface. I bet you didn't see the ability to manipulate air and water currents popping up when speaking of the living skin now, did you? So if you're strolling down the beach and you spy a suspicious-looking dry rag, what can you do to prevent this most dangerous hug? Well, from lore on the creature, it seems you'll need help of a Machi wise woman. The Machi will use a makeshift fishing lure crafted from a thorny bush, known in Chile as a quisco. This usually refers to a cactus. She'll throw it out into the waters to bait the creature, and once an Elque has pounced on it, mistaking it for food, well, as it squeezes the lure, it's damaged by the thorns, and this will frighten the beast off. Or if you're dealing with a particularly stubborn skin, you might even kill it. Or if you're a bit of a chancer, I did find stories of folks who wrap these cacti bits around their hands and feet, using them in combat with the leather. Personally, I wouldn't risk it, but I would pay to see it. Speaking of pay, you got that coin for your pint? Free? That doesn't sound like me. Let me go check the tapes. Man, I really hope I got those pronouncements right. Good lord. I had to cut so much. I'm terribly sorry. I hope it's at least passing. You know what would really help? If you hit that subscribe button. That's one way to show your support in these trying times for this disembodied voice. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere infrasonic iguanas make their homes. Just search for Creature Tavern. And while you're there, or at least have some form of internet-connected device, why not start a lovely short story, perhaps? Send it my way as a review, maybe? I don't know. That sounds like a pretty solid idea to me. That's it. I've got nothing else here. But I promise that in the next section, I'll maybe pronounce the names correctly. I will try. Thank you for sticking around and listening to this quick plea. Now let's get you back to the tavern. Yeah, they're all there. Ducked, basking, packing. What were we talking about again? Oh yes, our last creature for the week. The Blue Men of Minch, from Scottish folklore. The Blue Men of Minch, also known as Storm Kelpies, or the personification of the sea itself, if you want to be dramatic, are mythical beings believed by some to be part of a divine division of fallen angels. Upon their fall, it's said they separated into 3 distinct groups. The first became ground-dwelling fairies. The second transformed into the sea-sunken blue men. And the third ascended into the northern lights as merry dancers. Physically, these blue boys are described as humanoid in form, standing roughly the same height and build as ordinary male humanoids. But their skin is entirely blue, a deep shade that mirrors the colour of the ocean's depths, except for their face and arms, which are both described as long and grey. It's said they often wear blue headgear to complete the oceanic hue, and in at least one account, it's said they own wings, though the nature of these wings, whether they're physical or symbolic, is never specified. To complete the seafaring scene, the blue men are sometimes depicted with a green-white beard, like the traffic normally reserved for the hull of a ship has taken root on the chins of these bobbing blue boys. To locate yourself a blue man of Minch, you'll unsurprisingly need to head to the Minch. This is the stretch of water between mainland Scotland and the northern Outer Hebrides. Lore states they're confined to this very specific area, spending time in underwater caves near the Shan't Isles off the coast of Lewis. And according to a fellow named Donald A. Mackenzie, a Scottish journalist, I quote, "They have no counterparts anywhere else in Scotland or the greater world." The aqua-hued dudes are known by most for their distinct disposition, described by many as a roaring out-of-control sea. Or to use less words, violent. But when treated with respect and caution, there are some that say the blue beasties are harmless, and maybe even helpful. However, much like the roaring ocean, their mood can shift suddenly, turning them into the more familiar, dangerous force, eager to wreak havoc on ships and sailors alike. Foremost among their abilities is their mastery over the weather and the sea itself. The blue men possess the power to create severe storms, stirring the waves into chaos and sinking stricken vessels. They're actively looking for sailors to drown and boats to destroy, taking pleasure in capsizing ships caught in their domain. And when the weather's calm, stories say they float, asleep, on or just beneath the surface. So next time you're out in a boat and you think you see a man in need, maybe check him with the colour chart first. And if he's got a blue hue, sail on by silently. They're able to speak and converse with mariners, and I suspect by extension landlubbers too, often addressing them directly as they approach a ship. According to legend, when a group of the blue men spy a vessel, they'll charge toward it, swimming with their torsos raised out the sea, twisting and diving, like your common porpoise. And once close enough, their chief calls out 2 lines of poetry to the ship's captain, challenging him to complete the verse. If the skipper fails to respond, the blue men interpret that as a sign of weakness or disrespect. And like we all do when disrespected, they proceed to capsize the ship and drown the crew. During encounters such as these, the Blue Boys are said to roar with laughter as they soak ships with sea spray. Turns out, they find quite a bit of amusement in this coastal chaos. Though run-ins with the Blues don't always end up with you tossed in the drink. In calmer weather, it's rumoured they're fond of a spot of shinty, a traditional Scottish game similar to hockey, whipping rocks across the water surface. Just be careful your ship don't meet one of these stones, as the Blue Boys are said to possess strength rivaling that of 10 men. So if you've got a trip to Minch planned, and now you're scared the sea's coming for you, don't fret. I've got some handy snippets to help you survive. If you hear the sound of poetry amongst the crashing waves, you best reply quickly. And anything will do. You just got to make sure to match the Blue Chief's pattern. And lucky for you, I managed to find record of a rhyming encounter just like this. The conversation goes, Blue Chief, man of the black cap, what do you say, as your proud ship cleaves the brine? Skipper, my speedy ship takes the shortest way, and I'll follow you line by line. Blue Chief, my men are eager, my men are ready, to drag you below the waves. Skipper, my ship is speedy, my ship is steady. If it sank, it would wreck your caves. The quick thinking from the skipper here stopped the Blue Men's destructive desires, and it seems they're true to their word, as the boat in the story was left untouched, permitted to continue its journey without any more poetry. However, if you're not the best freestyle rapper, then legend says gifts work well in showing respect for the Blue Men. Pouring ale into the water seems to be a popular practice. Some legends go on to say that this is even a great way to persuade the Blue Men to leave seaweed on the beach, commonly used as fertilizer. But once it's yours, you can do whatever you fancy with it. Just don't kick it back. That might not be received well. Another way to encourage this benevolent side is by executing a local tradition where folks light a candle by the sea on the night of the Celtic festival of Samhain on November 1st. And with that, we're finished with our last creature for the week. We've learned to always carry a little rosemary around redheads, that fur sometimes does the murder, and in some cases, a book of poetry is better than a life jacket. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern, so grab yourself one more drink for the road, and until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird